Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lawrence. I am an IBM student. And tonight I'd like to talk about a very important topic in international business, precisely international trade. And I know some of you are versed with this major topic, especially for those who would like to get into business. International business is a very important topic, very interesting. And I would like to add my voice to what others have already done on YouTube to help educate the general public. So, we get started. International trade. So, the journey of international trade starts with finished merchandise which have been inspected by given after inspected they are being given a certificate of manufacture, and then the seller who received these things receive a pro seller invoice, and then the buyer who received the product receives a letter of credit. Then the payment is being done. From there we'll move to the next stage. As you can see, the seller will have to draw a bill of lading. Now, before the transaction takes place, there's what we call, or during the transaction, or it might take place before, the buyer and the seller have to come to an agreement on what we'll talk of the Incoterms. The Incoterms are terms or agreement, terms on agreement used by the trading partners on who does what as far as the charges and transportation are concerned. As far as insurance for the goods, charges, the cost, and transportation. That is everything that is linked to transportation, how the charges or the cost are being distributed between the buyer and the seller. So there are a lot of different Incoterms. So both people or both parties coming into this agreement may decide to choose any of the Incoterms depending on the kind of business or on the product they are trading on. Just as you have seen, some of the Incoterms are the CFR, the FOB. I'm very used to the FOB, that is free on board. So the FOB can be free on board at destination or simply free on board. So free on board at destination means that the goods have to be taken right at destination by the supplier. So the supplier will have to pay everything, the charges, as far as transportation and the good is concerned, till they arrive at the premises of the buyer or the premises of the customer. So there are a lot more Incoterms, different Incoterms, like I said before. The supplier and the buyer or the trading parties may decide on which Incoterm they want to deal with. But first of all, like I said, before the process starts, they have to agree, they have to have a letter of credit which is being used by your banks. That is, because between these two parties, there's another third party which come in, it's the bank. So the bank needs the letters of credit to be able to make sure that that trade is, or the transaction between these two parties is being kept, is being kept free from risk of one party not respecting its obligation or of one party not being able to make payments. So in order for both parties to be assured that the business is going to be smooth, there must come a third party which has got to do with money, and which are banks. So a bank is something which is recognized and can be trusted. So when these goods have left from the producer's place or the supplier's place, or from his or her warehouse, both of them, before this, they have to do, like I said before, a letter of credit. From there, they have to agree on Incoterms, which are the terms we are going to use in transporting this product or these goods. Who pays what and who does not pay what. Who pays at which time and at which place. So they come to common agreements, and then they get into the transportation of the goods. Now, the goods can be transported, are most often transported on land if it is if they are goods that are being transported within the same country, or if it's within the same continent, where they don't have to move by sea or by waterway, where they simply have to use containers on the road, transporting them from one country to another. That is, we'll talk now of cross-border transportation without maritime use. So when these goods arrive at destination, that is at the buyer's place, these goods are being kept in the warehouse. Now, when they are being kept into the warehouse, the buyer does not start making good use of this product. Like, for instance, if they were buying raw materials to use them in producing finished product and then start selling them, no, they have to keep it into the warehouse until import duties are completely paid. Otherwise, they cannot make use of them. Or if they arrive at the seaport during importation, import tax have to be paid before anything or any other process continues. Good. Now, we also have what we call a custom broker. Like you saw here, custom broker comes in to help the supply, the buyer to clear these goods at the custom, that is at the level of the port. Now, in this other part, we'll talk of merchandising. Now, what do you understand by merchandising? Now, merchandising has got to do with three people. One, the product or the goods. Two, the supplier. And then the buyer. Good. Now, like I said before, that merchandise has got to do with three parties: the supplier and the buyer. With two parties, the supplier and the buyer. Now, the supplier has the goods. These goods are bought and sold in trade and are called merchandise. So the merchandise are the goods that the supplier buys them and keeps them, stock them in the warehouse for them to be resold. So when these merchandise are being moved, they are being sold, it is called freight. And when you are transporting them, you have to pay what we call the freight charges. You can also call them cargo. So a perfect example is what you look at: the trucks that carry the merchandise from one part of or from one country to another by road. This merchandise have to pay taxes on the way and custom duties. So when these merchandise are on the truck being transported, they are called freight, and the transporter has to pay freight charges. Now, they are being transported either from the factory where they have been produced to the market, or from one warehouse to another warehouse. It might be from one country to another. So if it has got to do with transportation, that is maritime transportation, it has to be from the factory to the port. Or if it has got to do with land transportation from one country to another, which are just border countries, it will be transported from one warehouse to another warehouse. But what are the three things that are needed for this thing to be accepted, for the goods to be accepted? There are documents that must be carried along. There must be a certificate of manufacturing, a certificate of inspection. So when a manufacturer has finished it, he has to put a certificate of manufacturing for people to know who has produced that good. A certificate of inspection to know who are those, the competent authorities or the competent technicians who have inspected that good. And there are more other documents that can still be associated to it. For instance, like a medical certificate, it has got to do with something biological, like food, transportation of food from one country to another. Animals, the medical certificate must be required. Another certificate is the custom duty to show that you have paid your custom duty from the country of export. So a lot of these things are important to talk about them. But like I said before, international trade is a vast topic, and if we have to dwell into it, it's going to really take us a very long time. But I hope just a few things I have said right now here today, a few people, beginners, may start to understand exactly what's international trade. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this video makes sense to you. Thank you.